I, Ambassador Zrell Tavak of the Galactic Council, am about to do something no high-ranking council diplomat has done in over 150 standard cycles. I make official contact with humans. And trust me, no one is more surprised about this assignment than I am. You're sending me to Earth? I practically spat my Gerillian tea across High Counselor Bentak's immaculate desk when I received the orders. The same Earth we've been pretending doesn't exist for a century and a half? The High Counselor's 4 eyes blinked in that infuriatingly synchronized way that always makes me feel like I'm being scanned by security equipment. Ambassador Tavak, your record of successful diplomatic missions to challenging species makes you uniquely qualified. Challenging? I laughed. Is that what we're calling the humans now? Not dangerously unpredictable or evolutionarily unstable. Or what was that charming phrase in the official rejection notice? Ah, yes. Fundamentally incompatible with civilized governance? Bentak's cranial ridges darkened a sign of annoyance in Quatraxians. Circumstances have changed. That, dear reader, is the understatement of the millennium. For those unfamiliar with recent galactic history, though I can't imagine who could have missed this spectacular political disaster, humans applied for a council membership 150 cycles ago after achieving faster-than-light capability. The standard procedure for every other species: welcome them, guide them, integrate them into our peaceful galactic community. What happened instead? The Council took one look at human history, their endless wars, their baffling ability to simultaneously love and hate with equal passion, their tendency to bond with literally anything from microbial pets to artificial intelligence, and collectively lost their nerve. Too volatile for Council stability, the official assessment read. Unpredictable biological responses, dangerous expansion tendencies. So Earth was rejected. Not just rejected, banned. Told to evolve a few more millennia before reapplying. Suggested, quite rudely, to remain in their little corner of the galaxy, where their peculiarities couldn't disrupt the careful balance we'd maintained for 50,000 years. In retrospect, it might have been the worst decision in Council history. The humans have established what they call the Terran Cooperative, Bentak continued, sliding a data crystal across the desk. 27 star systems. 15 formerly non-aligned species now in alliance with them. Technology that our analysts cannot fully comprehend. And commerce routes that are beginning to rival our own. So they made their own empire, I remarked, trying not to sound impressed. How utterly human of them. Not an empire, Bentak corrected sharply. That's part of why we're concerned. They're not conquering, they're cooperating. Species are joining them voluntarily, leaving Council protection for whatever the humans are offering. I couldn't help myself. Perhaps they enjoy not being told they're evolutionarily immature. The High Counselor ignored my sarcasm. Your mission is to establish diplomatic relations, assess their intentions, and determine whether reconciliation is possible. A pause. The Council is prepared to offer them membership. Full membership. I nearly choked. After a century of treating them like a communicable disease? I'm sure they'll be thrilled. Just go, Tavak. Find out what they want. As my ship approaches Earth's primary orbital station, a structure so vast it puts our Council hub to shame, I can't shake a feeling of profound unease. Not because I fear the humans, but because deep down, I suspect I know exactly what they'll say to our belated olive branch. And I'm not sure the Council is ready to hear it. As my ship docks at the massive Terran station, I can't help but recall the infamous First Contact Summit that set all this in motion. I wasn't there personally, I was a junior diplomatic aide on Proxima at the time, but every Council member has studied the recordings. They've become required viewing in diplomatic training, filed under catastrophic negotiation failures. The humans had just achieved FTL travel crude by our standards, but impressive for their technological level. Council protocol dictated immediate contact once a species crosses that threshold. The welcoming delegation, led by Grand Arbiter Null Vexix, arrived with all the usual pomp and ceremony the Council loves so much. We come in peace as representatives of the Galactic Council, a brotherhood of species spanning this sector of the galaxy. Vexus announced to the Earth delegation with that insufferable self-importance he was known for. We have watched your species with great interest and are here to guide your transition into the larger galactic community. The recordings show the human representatives looking at each other with expressions I've since learned indicate suspicion. Their leader, a stern-faced female in what I now recognize as a military uniform adorned with symbols of rank, stepped forward. Admiral Lucia Blackwood, Earth United Defense, she introduced herself. You've been watching us? For how long, exactly? Vexus, missing the dangerous undertone entirely, proudly explained the Council's centuries-long observation protocols. He detailed with academic precision that makes me cringe even now how Council anthropologists had been studying human development since their early industrial period. How probes and occasionally disguised observers had documented Earth's wars, cultural developments, and technological progress. All standard procedure, of course. The humans didn't see it that way. Let me get this straight, Admiral Blackwood interrupted, her voice deceptively calm. You've been spying on us for centuries, watching our struggles, our wars, our suffering, and never once thought to help. Vexus blinked all three of his eyes, a sign of confusion in Talaxians. Interference would have contaminated the natural development process. Council law is quite clear. What followed was a diplomatic exchange that rapidly deteriorated. The Council representatives explained the careful balance of the galactic community, the Millennium-tested protocols for integration, the probationary period all new species undergo. Admiral Blackwood and her team asked increasingly pointed questions about Council structure, voting rights, technology sharing policies, and defense arrangements. The Council team, not expecting such direct interrogation, gave the standard bureaucratic answers. Then came the moment that changed everything. Grand Arbiter Vexus, growing impatient with the humans' persistent questioning, made what the Council later termed a regrettable verbal miscalculation. Perhaps, he said, your species requires more time to mature before full Council integration is appropriate. Your biological tendency toward conflict and your hierarchical social structures suggest an evolutionary stage that might benefit from extended observation rather than immediate inclusion. The temperature in that room dropped faster than a Creovian winter. Admiral Blackwood stood slowly, her posture rigid. So we're not evolved enough for your club? Our biological tendencies don't meet your standards? That is not precisely what Vexus began. No, I think it's exactly what you meant. Blackwood cut him off. Let me be equally clear, Arbiter. Humanity doesn't need your approval, your guidance, or your condescension. We've survived ice ages, plagues, world wars, and our own self-destructive tendencies. We'll find our own path among the stars. She turned to leave, then paused at the door. And when we do, remember this moment. Remember you had the chance to have us as allies rather than competitors. The Council delegation reported this as an emotional outburst typical of pre-rational species development. Vexus recommended a standard observation protocol with minimal contact for at least 50 cycles. The full Council approved the recommendation with only 2 dissenting voices. No one took what became known as the Blackwood Declaration seriously. It was filed away as an amusing anecdote of first contact tension, expected to dissolve once the humans calmed down and realized their isolation in a vast galaxy. The observation satellites were deployed, the monitoring stations established at the edge of Sol's system, and the Council moved on to more important matters. How spectacularly wrong we were. The decades following first contact became known in Council records as the observation period, but those of us in diplomatic circles had another name for it, the silent years. Humans, it seemed, had taken Admiral Blackwood's declaration quite literally. They didn't petition for reconsideration. They didn't attempt further communication. They simply got to work. Another mining operation established on their fourth planet reported Observer Station Gamma 12 in year 23 post-contact. Third orbital habitat around their single satellite now operational. Population estimate, 12,000 humans. The reports came with metronomic regularity. Earth's expansion throughout their solar system proceeded at a pace that surprised even our xenosociologists. A massive station at the L4 point between Earth and its moon. Mining outposts on asteroids. Research facilities on the gas giants. All standard development patterns for a spacefaring species. But then things got strange. Unusual energy signatures detected near the human's outermost planet, Observer Station Delta 4 noted in year 42. Purpose unknown. Appears experimental. Large quantities of antimatter being manufactured at Jupiter Station. Another report stated 6 months later. Quantities exceed reasonable power requirements. By year 60, Council monitoring stations began reporting bizarre gravitational anomalies throughout the Sol system. Distortions in space-time that appeared and vanished. Objects moving in ways that defied conventional propulsion. The humans appeared to be experimenting with dimensional manipulation, suggested a concerned report from the Science Directorate. Recommend immediate diplomatic contact to ensure safety protocols. The recommendation was denied. They're contained within their system, High Counselor Peltavar said dismissively in the closed session records. Let them play with their toys. Our anthropologists find their developmental path fascinating. Meanwhile, our observers noted unusual activities in Earth's asteroid belt, entire asteroids vanishing, only to reappear months later with different mass signatures. Massive construction projects whose purpose couldn't be determined from long-range observation. Communications suddenly switching to unknown protocols that our most sophisticated systems couldn't decrypt. They're obviously developing some form of improved sublight drive, stated the military directorate's assessment. Nothing concerning. Many young species focus on unnecessary technological ostentation before accepting Council guidance. Monitoring stations reported progressively less information as human countermeasures became more sophisticated. By year 90, large sections of the Sol system were effectively dark to our observers. Council anthropologists wrote lengthy papers theorizing about human development behind this veil of secrecy, most concluding that Earth was experiencing the typical technological plateau that precedes cultural maturation. Give them another century became the Council's unofficial position. They'll come crawling back when they realize the limitations of their isolation. Nobody thought to ask a more pertinent question. What if they've stopped talking not because they've hit a wall, but because they've found a door? And in our complacency, we failed to notice when that door burst wide open. Year 102 after first contact, the day everything changed. I remember it clearly because I had just been promoted to junior ambassador and was attending my first High Council session. The agenda was mind-numbingly routine trade disputes between the Vexillians and Kordathi, proposals for a new hyperspace lane regulation, the usual bureaucratic nonsense. Then the doors burst open. A breathless monitoring division officer rushed in a shocking breach of Council protocol that made half the chamber gasp in horror. Honored counselors, she panted, the humans. They're gone. The confused silence that followed was priceless. The Council arbiter, a particularly ancient TL Karian, blinked his gelatinous eye stalks. What do you mean, gone? The Earth, the officer explained, their orbital habitats, their stations, their mining operations. All abandoned, completely deserted. Is that got everyone's attention. A species doesn't just abandon its homeworld. Initial theories were appropriately apocalyptic. Mass extinction event. Devastating war. Technological catastrophe. 3 separate emergency assessment teams were dispatched to Sol system. They found intact infrastructure, functioning automated systems, evidence of careful preparation for departure. But no humans. Not a single one. Then the reports started coming in from the fringes of Council space. Unknown vessels detected in the Proxima Centauri system came the first alert. Design inconsistent with known species. Strange activity near Tau Ceti followed another. Multiple artificial structures appearing in orbit around the fourth planet. Unregistered settlement established on Luiton B reported a trade vessel. Occupants appeared to be human. Within 6 months, we had confirmation humans had somehow developed a completely new form of faster-than-light travel. Not the hyperspace technology the Council had used for millennia, but something different. Something that didn't require the massive gate structures or energy arrays our system depended on. Something elegant and, frankly, terrifying in its implications. The first official contact came when a sleek vessel of unfamiliar design appeared without warning at the edge of the Tralaxian system, home to a non-Council species the Galactic Council had classified as pre-spacefaring developmental observation only. "This is Commander Jackson Palmer of the Terran vessel Defiance," announced the transmission. "We come with an offer of friendship and cooperation to the people of Tralax." Council observers watched in stunned disbelief as the humans proceeded to share technology, medical knowledge, and resource development techniques with the Tralaxians, a direct violation of Council non-interference protocols. Even more shocking, they didn't establish a colony or claim authority. They offered partnership. "The Terran Cooperative welcomes equals, not subjects," Palmer reportedly told the Tralaxian leadership. "Your world remains your own. Your development path remains your choice. We simply offer the hand of friendship to those the Council has deemed unworthy of attention." Within a standard year, 7 previously non-aligned worlds had joined this Terran Cooperative. Within 5 years, that number had grown to 15. And the Defiance? It became something of a legend, appearing without warning where needed most, offering aid to struggling colonies the Council had neglected, intervening when pirates or outlaws threatened developing worlds. "This is a temporary anomaly," the Council's Strategic Assessment Division assured everyone. "Humans lack the stability and long-term vision to maintain such an alliance. Their biological imperative toward dominance will eventually lead to exploitation. These lesser species will soon come fleeing back to Council protection." But something strange was happening instead. The worlds joining the cooperative were thriving. Their technological development accelerated. Cultural exchanges flourished. And most concerning of all, 3 minor species that previously held Council membership actually renounced it to join the humans. "Perhaps," I suggested in what was probably an ill-advised moment of candor during a briefing session, "we should reconsider our assessment of human capabilities." The withering looks from my superiors told me all I needed to know about how seriously they took this suggestion. Their mistake, one the entire Council would soon come to regret. If the breakthrough was the moment we should have started paying attention, the Proxima incident was when even the most stubborn Council members couldn't deny reality any longer. I was serving as diplomatic liaison to the Security Division at the time, which gave me a front-row seat to the entire debacle. The trouble began with yet another pirate problem. The Krasnar Raiders, a particularly nasty band of outlaws, had been terrorizing the trade routes near the Proxima Centauri system for years. The Council's response was typical: file reports, issue warnings, promise action, do nothing substantial. After all, Proxima wasn't a Council system. The humans had settled it without authorization, so technically it fell outside our protection mandate. "Let the humans deal with it," Security Commander Vrek said with a dismissive wave of his tentacles. "Perhaps it will teach them the value of Council membership." The Krasnar, emboldened by Council inaction, launched a major assault on the human settlement orbiting Proxima B, a massive space station they called New Horizon. Over 3,000 human colonists, plus representatives from at least 5 other species who had joined their cooperative. What happened next was transmitted across every communication channel in the sector, courtesy of the pirates themselves, who apparently wanted to broadcast their victory. Instead, they documented their annihilation. The raid began conventionally enough. The pirates disabled the station's outer defenses and docked boarding vessels. But when they breached the station's hull, they discovered something no one expected: humans ready for battle. Not just ready, eager. "Welcome to Proxima Station," announced a calm female voice as the first pirates entered the main concourse. "I am Captain Alara Nasir, Defense Commander. You have exactly 30 seconds to surrender before we respond to your aggression." The pirates naturally laughed. Their leader, the notorious Krasnar warlord Grakek, actually made a rude gesture at the station cameras. 29. 28. Captain Nasir counted down, utterly unperturbed. When the count reached 0, the feed showed something none of us had ever seen before. The station's interior walls moved. Sections that appeared to be solid bulkheads reconfigured themselves into defensive positions. Hidden compartments opened to reveal weapons unlike any in the Council database. And the humans themselves. They fought with a coordination that bordered on hive mind efficiency, yet with individual adaptability that no hive mind could match. While Council species typically specialized in specific combat roles based on biological predisposition, the humans switched tactics fluidly, adapting to each situation as it developed. Most shocking were their combat suits' form-fitting armor that seemed to anticipate movement, enhancing strength and speed while providing protection against energy weapons. The Krasnar's typical shock and terrify tactics fell completely flat against opponents who responded to fear with focused aggression rather than panic. Section 3 secure, one human would call. Flanking maneuver in Corridor B, another would respond. Understood. Engaging countermeasures, Captain Nasir directed, her voice never rising above conversational level, despite the chaos around her. Within 43 minutes, the entire pirate force, nearly 200 of the most feared raiders in the sector, was either captured or dead. The humans suffered exactly 7 casualties, all non-fatal. But the true revelation came afterward. Security Division received a direct communication from Captain Nasir herself. Galactic Council Security Division. She said, looking directly into the camera with unnervingly steady eyes, "We are well aware you've been monitoring this situation. We are equally aware you chose not to intervene, despite having 3 patrol vessels within response range. Please be advised. The Terran Cooperative protects its own. We neither request nor require your assistance in the future." She paused, then added with a slight smile that somehow made my blood run cold, "Oh, and we're returning the pirates to you for proper processing under Council law. Because unlike some, we respect the rule of law, even when it's inconvenient." Nasir out. 24 hours later, a human vessel delivered 163 captured pirates to the nearest Council security outpost, all neatly processed with evidence packages detailing their crimes. The Council Security Division's official assessment, filed 3 days later, abandoned all previous dismissive language. Human military capabilities represent a significant and previously unrecognized strategic factor in regional security dynamics. Recommend immediate reassessment of cooperative expansion and technological development. Threat level, severe. Too little, too late. The legend of Captain Nasir and the Battle of Proxima Station spread through the sector faster than Council sensors could contain it. 3 more independent worlds applied for cooperative membership within a month. Even more concerning, applications to Council Academy from Council worlds dropped by 30%, while human educational exchange programs saw a 500% increase in applications. The Council had finally noticed the humans, but by then the humans had stopped caring what the Council thought. What followed the Proxima incident became known throughout diplomatic circles as the Great Shuffle, though the Council preferred the more dignified term temporary realignment of interspecies relations. Call it what you will, it was a political earthquake that shook the foundations of the Council's 50,000-year hegemony. The Beltari were first to leave a minor Council member for barely 3 centuries. They announced their withdrawal with little ceremony. The cooperative offers more favorable trade terms, their ambassador stated flatly before packing up his office. The council barely noted their departure, dismissing them as economically insignificant. Then the Novan Collective withdrew. Then the Pentari Republic. Then, most shockingly, the Atulan Concord, founding members of the council with over 20,000 years of continuous representation. This is becoming problematic, understated High Counselor Javix during an emergency session. The humans have expanded their influence to 22 systems in under 70 years. Their economic growth rate exceeds council projections by 800%. The markets noticed too. The once stable exchange rate universal, the foundation of council economic stability for millennia, fluctuated wildly as trade patterns shifted. Human goods flooded markets across the sector, medicines with fewer side effects than council alternatives, food supplies that remained fresh without chemical treatment, entertainment media that somehow appealed across species barriers. They must be using prohibited influence technologies, insisted the economic division. No species voluntarily changes established trade patterns so rapidly. But the truth was far simpler and far more uncomfortable. Humans offered better terms. No required technological oversight. No mandatory cultural adjustment programs. No bureaucratic approval process for colony establishment. Just straightforward, mutually beneficial commerce. The Council's response was predictably rigid. Trade restrictions, diplomatic isolation, hyperspace lane access limitations. They deployed every traditional tool of economic coercion. None of it worked. The humans simply built their own trade routes using their unconventional FTL technology. They established alternative supply chains. They invited isolated species to join their expanding network. Perhaps, suggested Ambassador Telix of the Kandarian Assembly during a particularly heated debate, we should consider that our assessment of human capabilities was incomplete. The chamber erupted in outrage, but I noticed something interesting. Nearly 1/3 of the representatives remained silent. In a growing faction that recognized reality, even if they weren't ready to speak it aloud. When the dust settled, the council narrowly approved a historic decision: direct diplomatic re-engagement with the humans. Someone had to go to the Terran Cooperative headquarters at Tau Ceti and extend a formal invitation to join the council, this time without probationary status or special restrictions. Ambassador Tavak, High Counselor Bentak, informed me the next day, given your extensive experience with challenging diplomatic situations, the council has selected you for this critical mission. I couldn't decide whether to be honored or insulted. You want me to invite the humans to join the organization that rejected them a century ago? The same humans who now control an interstellar alliance that's bleeding members from the council every cycle? Precisely, he confirmed without a trace of irony. The council is confident in your ability to. How do the humans put it? Ah, yes, to smooth things over. I should have resigned then and there. But curiosity got the better of me. I wanted to see for myself what the humans had built while we weren't watching. And that, dear reader, is how I found myself aboard a diplomatic vessel headed toward Tau Ceti, tasked with offering membership to a species that had already created something potentially better than what we were inviting them to join. Nothing in my 300 cycles of diplomatic service prepared me for my first glimpse of Nova Terra, the human capital orbiting Tau Ceti E. Our ship emerged from hyperspace at the designated coordinates, and for a moment I thought our navigation systems had malfunctioned. That can't possibly be right, I told my pilot. We must be at the wrong location. The massive structure filling our view screen couldn't possibly be a space station. Space stations don't have their own weather systems. They don't have mountain ranges and oceans visible from orbit. They aren't surrounded by a swarm of ships so dense they resemble a glittering cloud rather than individual vessels. Sensors confirm, Ambassador, my pilot replied, equally stunned. That's Nova Terra. Population: approximately 12 million. Multiple species detected. 12 million. The Council hub, our pride and joy, houses barely 1 million. And Nova Terra was just one of dozens of similar habitats throughout Terran space. Incoming transmission, announced our communications officer. A human face appeared on screen, female, middle-aged by their standards, with dark skin, and what I would later learn was an expression of genuine warmth rather than diplomatic artifice. Council Vessel Harmonious Accord. This is Ambassador Diana Reeves of the Terran Cooperative. Welcome to Nova Terra. Please proceed to Docking Bay 47C. A reception committee awaits your arrival. No scanning procedures, no security interrogation, no 12-hour quarantine protocol. Just welcome. I was immediately suspicious. Our docking went smoothly, suspiciously so. The bay we entered dwarfed our prestigious diplomatic vessel, making it look like a pleasure craft next to the massive ships surrounding it. Most weren't even military vessels, just ordinary transport and commerce ships on a scale the Council typically reserved for capital warships. Ambassador Reeves greeted me personally at the airlock, a breach of diplomatic protocol, so refreshing I nearly forgot to be offended. Ambassador Tavak, welcome to Nova Terra, she said, extending her hand in the human greeting custom. We've been expecting a Council representative for about 50 years now. You're fashionably late. I couldn't tell if she was joking or insulting me. I settled for a non-committal grunt. I've arranged a tour before our formal discussions, she continued, unperturbed by my lack of response. I find it helps put things in perspective. The next 6 hours fundamentally changed my understanding of what humans had achieved. We visited their central commons, a vast open space at Nova Terra's core, where representatives of at least 30 different species mingled freely. Without the rigid protocol zones the Council mandates for interspecies interaction. I watched a Kandarian child playing with a human child while their parents conversed nearby. No cultural integration supervisors, no species-appropriate activity monitors, just spontaneous interaction. How do you prevent cultural contamination? I asked Ambassador Reeves. She looked genuinely confused. Why would we want to? The agricultural sector showcased farming techniques that incorporated methodologies from a dozen worlds, creating yields that outperformed Council standard practices by factors I found difficult to believe. The medical center featured treatment protocols that blended approaches from across the cooperative, resulting in survival rates that made our medical directorate statistics look primitive by comparison. Most impressive was the engineering hub, where teams of mixed species worked on technologies I could barely comprehend. Their FTL drive, the Blackwood drive, named after that infamous admiral, didn't force ships to follow predetermined hyperspace lanes like Council vessels. It created localized space-time shortcuts, allowing direct point-to-point travel. It's based on principles we discovered during the silent years, explained the chief engineer, a brilliant human named Okafor. When we realized the Council wasn't going to share their technology, we had to find our own path. There was that phrase again. Their own path. As our tour concluded, we stood in an observation dome overlooking the massive habitat. Below us stretched a thriving metropolis where numerous species coexisted without the rigid stratification the Council had always insisted was necessary for stability. This isn't an empire, I said, the realization finally dawning on me. You haven't conquered anyone. Ambassador Reeves smiled. The Terran Cooperative operates on a simple principle, Ambassador Tavak. Species are stronger together than apart, but only when they join freely and are valued equally. But the Council has always maintained that different evolutionary paths require different levels of guidance and oversight, I protested weakly, reciting the doctrine I'd believed my entire life. Yes, she replied with gentle amusement. The Council has always maintained that. We simply chose to test whether it was actually true. I stared out at the bustling, thriving community below us. The result of that test was undeniable. The Council sent me to offer you membership, I admitted, feeling suddenly foolish. Ambassador Reeves laughed not unkindly, but with genuine humor. "Oh, Ambassador Tavak, what makes you think we want to join?" The formal diplomatic session was scheduled for the following day in what they called the Cooperation Chamber, a vast circular room whose architecture somehow managed to accommodate the environmental needs of multiple species without segregating them into the specialized zones the Council would have required. I spent a sleepless night preparing my carefully crafted speech about the benefits of Council membership, rehearsing the precise diplomatic phrasings that had been approved after 17 committee reviews. All of which became completely irrelevant the moment Chancellor Marcus Way entered the room. He wasn't physically imposing by human standards average height, lean build, salt and pepper hair as they call it. But he carried himself with a quiet confidence that silenced the chamber instantly. No ceremonial guards, no elaborate introduction. He simply walked in, nodded to everyone present, and took his seat at the round table. "Ambassador Tavak," he greeted me. "I understand you've traveled a long way to speak with us. We appreciate the Council finally deciding we're worth talking to." The subtle barb wasn't lost on me. I cleared my throat and launched into my prepared speech anyway. "The Galactic Council recognizes the impressive achievements of humanity and the Terran Cooperative," I began. "In light of your demonstrated capabilities, the Council is prepared to offer Earth special probationary membership status, with accelerated consideration for full membership within just 20 standard cycles." A murmur ran through the assembled representatives. Chancellor Way raised an eyebrow fractionally. "And what restrictions would this probationary status entail?" he asked. I outlined the standard terms: Council oversight of expansion projects, gradual integration of technologies into Council standards, adoption of Council trade regulations, and the usual security protocols that would give Council forces access to cooperative space. When I finished, Chancellor Way nodded thoughtfully. "So, to summarize, after rejecting us for 150 years, the Council now wants access to our technology, our trade networks, and our territory, while offering us a subordinate position with the possibility of equality at some undefined future date." Put that way, it sounded terrible. I attempted damage control. "The Council offers stability, protection, and..." Protection? The new voice belonged to an older human female at Way's Right Admiral Blackwood's successor, Fleet Commander Sanchez. "Like the protection you offered our settlement at Proxima?" Chancellor Way raised a hand, and she fell silent. "Ambassador Tavak isn't responsible for Council policy, Elena. He's just delivering their message." He turned back to me. "We have a counter-proposal." He activated a holographic display in the center of the table, showing a map of the sector. Areas of Council control glowed blue. Cooperative territories glowed green. The overlap was striking and concerning. "The Cooperative proposes a mutual recognition treaty," Way stated. "We acknowledge Council authority in traditional Council space. You acknowledge Cooperative authority in our territory. Non-aligned worlds remain free to choose affiliation. Open trade, cultural exchange, and a non-aggression pact." "That's not what the Council authorized me to negotiate," I admitted. "No, I expect it isn't," Way smiled slightly. "But it's what makes sense for both our peoples going forward. The Council won't accept equal standing with a species they still view as evolutionary juniors," I said, surprising myself with my candor. "Then they'll continue to lose member worlds, trade routes, and influence," Way replied simply. "We're not asking for domination, Ambassador. Just recognition of reality." I looked around the chamber at the representatives from 30 different species, former Council members, species we'd dismissed as irrelevant, civilizations we'd kept under observation for centuries, all thriving, all equal participants. "You've created something remarkable here," I admitted. Way nodded. "We had no choice. You showed us the door. We simply chose to build something new on the other side." For the first time in my diplomatic career, I decided to go off script. I'll present your counter-proposal to the Council, Chancellor Wei, and I'll recommend they seriously consider it. As our session concluded, I realized something profound. The humans had outmaneuvered the Council at every turn, not through cunning or deception, but simply by building something better. They'd taken rejection and turned it into opportunity. They'd taken isolation and forged connection. They didn't need us, we needed them. And the sooner the Council realized that, the better off we'd all be. My return journey to Council space gave me plenty of time to contemplate what I'd witnessed. The Terran Cooperative wasn't just a political alliance or economic partnership. It represented a fundamentally different approach to interspecies relations than anything the Council had practiced in 50 millennia. "We don't need your permission to exist," Chancellor Wei had said during our final private meeting. "But everyone's lives would be better with cooperation rather than competition." I'd expected arrogance from the humans after seeing their achievements. Instead, I found something far more dangerous: pragmatism backed by confidence. 6 standard months after my mission to Nova Terra, representatives from the Council and the Cooperative met on neutral territory, a previously uninhabited world, at the border between our respective territories. What emerged from those tense negotiations was unprecedented: the Galactic Concordat, a framework for coexistence between two interstellar powers of equal standing. The Council conservatives were apoplectic. "We've existed for 50,000 years, thundered Chancellor Zrell during the ratification debate. "These humans have been in space for barely 2 centuries. How dare they presume equality?" Perhaps, I suggested from my newly elevated position as senior ambassador, we should consider that longevity doesn't necessarily equal superiority. Perhaps there's something to be learned from different approaches. The Concordat passed by the narrowest margin in Council history. Many predicted disaster. Some threatened secession. But a curious thing happened in the cycles that followed. The border worlds between Council and cooperative space began to thrive. Trade flourished. Cultural exchanges multiplied. Scientific collaboration yielded breakthroughs neither civilization could have achieved alone. When Chancellor Wei visited the Council hub for the first formal diplomatic reception a year later, the first human to set foot in the Council chamber since Admiral Blackwood's infamous exit, I had the honor of serving as his official escort. "Quite impressive," he commented, surveying the ancient hall with its records of 50,000 years of history. "There's something to be said for tradition and continuity." "There's also something to be said for innovation and adaptation," I replied. He smiled. "The best path forward probably includes both, wouldn't you say?" I found myself nodding. "I've been thinking about that famous declaration your Admiral Blackwood made all those years ago, about finding your own path." "Ah, the Blackwood Declaration. It's required reading for every cooperative child now." He paused, looking thoughtful. "You know, the most important part wasn't her defiance. It was her insight that paths can diverge and still lead to worthy destinations." As the formal ceremonies concluded, I wandered to the ancient reflection pool, where counselors have contemplated decisions for millennia. My reflection wavered in the iridescent waters, and for a moment I could almost see the parallel history, the one where the Council had welcomed humans, where we had embraced their dynamism rather than fearing it. The Council's greatest mistake wasn't rejecting Earth's membership application. It was assuming that rejection would relegate humans to insignificance. We thought we were closing a door. In reality, we pushed them to build something new, perhaps something better on the other side. Species across the galaxy now have a choice between 2 models of interstellar community: the ancient, stable, hierarchical Council, or the young, dynamic, egalitarian cooperative. Perhaps competition between these models will improve both. Perhaps, in time, they will merge into something greater than either could become alone. One thing is certain: no one underestimates humans anymore. Not after they took rejection and turned it into an empire. Not after they showed the galaxy that finding your own path sometimes means creating a road where none existed before. And when future historians record this pivotal moment in galactic history, I hope they note the irony that only became clear to me standing beside that reflection pool. In trying to keep humans out, we accidentally pushed them to achieve their greatest potential. Sometimes being denied a seat at the table inspires you to build a better table. The humans didn't just find their own path among the stars. They paved new ones for others to follow.